Today's podcast is sponsored by Branderstock's Polearm Emporium. You can find Branderstock's in Upper Ramsbottom Street in the town of Thornistons, just past Mrs. Cockle's Codpiece Boutique. Branderstock's Polearm Emporium sells a wide range of halberds, glaives, and bohemian ear spoons. Ear spoons? That's not a real thing, is it? Ridiculous. What is this nonsense anyway? I can't believe I'm reduced to flogging this low-class commoner tat to pay my rent. Anyway, go to Branderstock's for pointy sticks. Now listen to this podcast, which today features two of my lesser henchmen, Russ Morrissey and Peter Coffey. They may be joined by Angus of Branson, who I understand is some sort of hobbit or goblin or some such. Now leave me alone.
Hello. Welcome to Morris's unofficial tabletop RPG news. As always, I am Russ, aka Morris, and with me are my two cunning and deadly compatriots.
Yes, hi, I'm Peter Coffey from the Southampton Guild of Roleplayers, delighted as ever to be here.
And I'm Angus Abramson, level 4 human fighter. Few extra experience points from last time, but not enough to level up.
Ooh, that level drain is going to be a thing. You need to stop fighting the ghouls.
Yeah, it's really kind of put me back a few months. It's terrible.
My idiot henchmen will now discuss what's caught their eye today. If you pretend to care, I can pay them less.
Okay, let's start with you this week, Angus, as we always start with Peter. What this week has caught your eye in the RPG industry?
Well, one of the things that's certainly jumped to the forefront of my lust as well at the moment is the new Star Wars slipcase that Fantasy Flight Games have just brought out.
That's the D6 system resurrected.
It's the old West End Games D6 version from the 1980s. And West End Games were brought by Nocturnal Game Design a few years ago. And they have done a deal with Fantasy Flight for Fantasy Flight to be able to reprint the core rulebook and the Star Wars source book as a lovely slipcase as a 30th anniversary edition, using the original rules, original print, and everything else. Better quality paper and everything, but it looks stunning.
So when can I get this thing?
It has actually started hitting stores now. So it's I heard reports of some of the places in the US getting it last week, and it's certainly hitting UK stores this week.
Woohoo! I'll be able to get one straight away. So, Peter.
Well, this week I have been mostly in North Wales, which is lovely. I've been playing a lot of board games. I've also been caving, making my way around a former slate mine, ziplining, crawling along things, crawling over things.
Is that why you're so pale this week?
Yes, that is why I'm pale and pale.
The rest of us are all red and sunburnt. Here comes Peter walking in like a ghoul.
Like I said, I'm solitude by nature.
Gollum.
What has it got in his pockets? It's precious. Anyway, moving swiftly on. Things I did see was something that very much excited me was a thing called Metroplex, which I think Angus was shouting out. And that's a Kickstarter, which I wasn't sure I could look at, but then Angus said it was a film, so it was okay. This is a good bit.
So Metroplex, what's that then?
Metroplex, it is designed for fans of both Bright and Shadowrun. So they clearly have seen the exciting world of elves, orcs, dwarves and wizards meet high tech and...
So Bright being that Netflix movie that was starring Will Smith a few months back.
Precisely, yes, which was met with a mixed reception. The main thing that people complained about was it didn't have enough time to do its world building. So in this case, what they're doing is they're trying to make a 10-minute concept film. Trying to raise about £25,000. So what's that, about $40,000? Something
like that.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. They're trying to make some money.
Some dollars.
They're trying to make some money, not an immense amount, in order so that they can actually put it together and have it on TV. So I'm pretty excited by that.
That does sound good. You can find that on Kickstarter, can you?
Definitely on Kickstarter.
No idea. Well, my thing this week, I wanted to talk about Pathfinder 2 again. I know I did a couple of weeks ago, but they did a preview of the new Ranger class.
Is this one of the archetypes or the actual class itself?
the actual Ranger class. So, as you know, sort of Rangers in D&D and Pathfinder and things kind of range the gamut from sort of Aragorn-esque sort of wilderness strider through to sort of dual-wielding drow magical creatures.
Yes.
My preference tends to be towards the Aragorn-esque kind of end of it, which is why I quite like the sort of Middle-earth 5e thing from Cubicle 7. So this Ranger for Pathfinder 2 looks like it skews towards that end of the spectrum. So he's basically a hunter, a trapper, a wilderness guy. He has no spells, no magical abilities. So he's a sort of skill-based wilderness, rugged outdoorsman, which definitely hits me right in the sweet spot. I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
Now, when's the Pathfinder 2 playtest actually going to be available?
Basically, Gen Con. Okay. I got an email last week, or was it this week? I can't remember when, from Paizo.com for their pre-orders, saying that the cards are being charged on Monday, which is today, I think. Is it today Monday?
It was a couple of days ago.
It's a couple of days ago. Today's Wednesday, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the cards are being charged today, and then presumably the pre-orders go out shortly thereafter.
Moving swiftly on.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I can see why you'd like the new Ranger archetype. You do have that Viggo Mortensen look about you.
Is it the beard?
Yes, if not.
I will now instruct my minions to discuss the latest RPG news. Minions, discuss the latest RPG news.
Time for the news.
Time for the news.
Has there been any news?
Well, one of the breaking stories of last week was Altasaurian Games. It's a company that's been around since the 80s, made famous through games like Cyberpunk 2020, Castle Falkenstein. They have been developing for the last few years a role-playing game based upon the Witcher novels and computer games.
I saw that, yeah.
And the Witcher role-playing game is going to be debuted at Gen Con in August. At the same time, they're going to be making the PDFs available as well. But it's an advanced release. They're getting some copies shipped in extra special for Gen Con before the full run comes through that will then be available through distribution in stores.
So pretend, just for the moment, that I don't know what The Witcher is. Just pretend. And just explain it to me as if I didn't know what that was. I totally know what it is.
You see, this is really what I thought you had me on, to ask this sort of question.
What is The Witcher, Angus?
The Witcher was based upon a series of novels by a Polish author called Andrzej Sapkowski, I believe his name is pronounced. It was turned into a video game that became a video game series by CD Projekt Red, who are also a company that's doing the Cyberpunk 2077 computer game that's been getting a lot of buzz. The actual Witcher series is set in a medieval fantasy world. It follows a guy called
That
Geralt.
does sound unusual, a medieval fantasy world.
But yeah, basically the Witcher. He's a travelling monster hunter with supernatural powers. Now, don't know what the role play. Yeah, obviously you're going to be playing Witchers in the role playing game, but I don't know how. What other character types or anything else that might be available. Presumably they'll keep it very tight to the source
Well, I guess
material.
we'll find out at Gen Con then.
We'll be finding out in a few weeks' time at Gen Con.
So, in other news, were you two aware of the legal battle over the BattleTech MechWarrior franchise?
I'd heard something about it.
Okay.
The computer game's quite good.
Yeah, so basically, this is the really short version, summarised by Darryl, actually, in his latest column. So basically, go back to 1984, FASA Corporation create BattleTech. And this is used a bunch of sort of mech designs licensed from an anime called Macross. In the following year, a company called Harmony Gold also licensed the same cartoon to make a cartoon franchise called Robotech. So basically we've got these two companies that have both licensed mech designs from the same cartoon. So fast forward to like the mid-90s, we've got this legal dispute over who has the proper license to those mech designs from the original Macross cartoon. It looks like this lawsuit's been going on for decades, basically.
Yeah,
since
1994.
Since the 90s. It's finally been settled. It's a sealed settlement, so we don't get to see exactly what happened. But it turns out both companies will now be using the designs.
Oh, okay.
Don't know if any other sort of strictures or money exchange hands or anything, but basically now both companies are allowed to use the designs, and the lawsuit's been settled with prejudice, which basically means they're not allowed to bring it up again.
Oh, okay.
In other news, The Expanse. I know, Angus, you're a fan of The Expanse. You've read all the books, haven't you?
Yeah, the novels are fantastic. I've been really enjoying the TV series.
I've been following the TV series. I haven't read the novels.
Oh, you should. They're amazing.
About a year ago, Green Ronin announced they were producing a role-playing game based on The Expanse.
Fantastic.
Uses their adventure game engine series.
Ooh.
So there's a Kickstarter they've announced is going to be launching later this month before the game is released at Gen Con in August.
Oh, is the game actually being released in
Apparently
August?
so we can jump on that pretty quickly, I think.
That's going to be a very short Kickstarter then, because for Kickstarter, there's not a lot of time between now and Gen Con.
Either way, there'll be a lot of very excited people because really quality sci-fi universe like The Expanse doesn't come along every day.
And also, there's a lot of love for the Age system as well, because they recently released Modern Age, of course, which is their modern version. The system's been used for a number of games that they've done in the past, and has been very popular.
Any names I've heard of?
Dragon Age.
Right.
Which obviously was a licensed game, but they've also then done their own Fantasy Age, obviously Modern Age, which is the one that's just come out.
Of course. Right.
Okay, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4. Cubicle 7 have given us a quick look at the career list. So we've got 8 classes of careers, each of which has 8 careers, each of which has 4 levels. So basically 64 careers, each of which is divided into 4 levels.
Big change. In the original Rough-Up, what you had was you had to advance your character by changing careers. Whereas this sounds a lot more like they've got people in a career are able to advance within it, which...
only like 4 stages, though, I think. It's not like a class system, right?
That's literally 4 times as many as they had before.
but if it sounds like if they've still got the career advancements thing, because obviously in the original one you had the preferred careers that you could move into, which I guess is what
Career
they've
exits.
divided into their 4s. And presumably it's still got the rat catcher.
Well, I was trying to get to that before you two interrupted. Because I've got the news item right in front of me while you two speculate away. I've got the actual facts here.
Hey, that small but vicious dog. Oh, I didn't want one of those.
So we've got the 8 classes of careers, each of which has 8 careers within. So the 8 classes of careers are academics, burghers, B-U-R-G-H-E-R-S, obviously.
Oh, so ham is not a available option.
No. Courtiers, peasants, rangers, riverfolk, rogues, and warriors. And the rat catcher is in there.
What career class does it fall under?
It's
a burger.
Well, you can buy my rat burgers if you like, sir.
Yes, it's a burger. Along with the other burgers are agitator, artisan, beggar, investigator, merchant, townsman, watchman, and the rat catcher.
I'm sensing a Terry Pratchett conversion coming up in my head.
Yeah.
Rat on a stick, $2. Rat on a stick with ketchup, $5. Why is it so much more expensive? Have you ever tried rat on a stick without ketchup?
So would you like to hear about the peasant class's 8 careers?
Not so much. Go on then, tell me about the peasant class's 8 careers.
But they're peasants. Who cares about the peasants?
I know, right?
So we'll just jump into one of these, yeah? Let's jump into... Which one would you like to hear? The bailiff, the hedge witch, the herbalist, hunter, miner, mystic, scout, or villager? Which of those would you like to hear?
Oh, mystic.
First one to say, mystic, okay. So mystic, those 4 levels that we mentioned earlier are fortune teller, mystic, sage, and seer.
Oh, interesting. So, when you say 4 levels, these are things people can progress in, or 4 sub-options?
I think it's 4 ranks, but I'm not 100% sure. I guess we'll find out when it actually comes out.
Because from what it says...
Oh, look, right, so they've given us a zoom in on the apothecary. So basically the apothecary's for apothecary's apprentice, apothecary, master apothecary, and apothecary general, and they sort of progress one at a time.
So if you stay within your chosen class, you'll get better and better and better.
Presumably,
yeah.
But you wouldn't be able to diversify your skill portfolio. Interesting. I can feel my inner number cruncher striving to get out.
This is a segment that I like to call our favourite game in all the world. Guess what the Kickstarter's about from hearing just the name and nothing else. Catchy, isn't it?
Right, shall we play our favourite game in all the world?
Yay.
Guess the Kickstarter from hearing just the name and nothing else.
My favouriteest game ever. Come on, let's do it.
I know you love it. Angus?
Can I play?
No, you may not.
Oh, no.
You may sit in the corner with a dunce's cap on and wait for us to finish.
Okay.
As always, Angus can't play because we based this on the column he writes, so he knows all the answers. But you can help with the scoring.
That's my favourite job.
All right then, number 1.
Yes, number 1.
What is this? Tiny Supers.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to take a wild guesses about people with superpowers and tiny supers. Well, it could mean child superheroes, but what I prefer to think about it is it's a microscopic world where you have all these superpowered beings which have the strength of ants, say, Ant-Man, because they are literally...
Did you say superpowered beings?
Beings. Yes. Superpowered beings, that would be another. Oh, wow, yeah. Like you could have all sorts of legumes doing all sorts of action.
That's, well, you know, you got the supers, not so much the tiny, so 5 out of 10. So you're correct, it is a game about supers. Mm-hmm. The tiny refers not to the superheroes themselves, but to the game system. Have you heard of the Tiny D6 system?
I clearly have not.
So the Tiny D6 system is basically a very sort of stripped down, very simple game system, which I believe uses, 1D6? And this is basically a superhero RPG using that system.
Oh, and they got some really nice artwork as well.
Yeah, lot of nice sort of cartoony artwork there.
I'm very much liking the style. Tiny Supers.
That is Tiny Supers.
And that's one Kickstarter starting soon, you say?
No, it's out now.
Kickstarter out now.
Now, one of the things with the Tiny Supers and the other tiny games that they do is one of the things that's a really good selling point is they get a whole bunch of different authors to come up with 1,000-word settings or 1,500 word settings. So very, very compact, small, kind of like...
Tiny, you say?
Sorry?
Tiny, you say?
Yeah, tiny little settings. And they can be across, kind of like anything to do with the subject matter. So basically, Gallant Knight Games have approached a load of authors and people within the industry, written up a whole bunch of little settings, and they're included in the main book. Alongside, for the first time, they've got their official main setting in there, which they've called the Gallant Verse. Gallant Knight Games, of course, which is their core superhero setting, which is the first time that they've actually put in their own official main core setting alongside all the micro settings.
Fantastic. Big step forward for Gallant Knight Games.
It's certainly an interesting move on their part.
Mm-hmm. So, what's next?
This might be a little more difficult. Secrets of the Nether City.
Is Nether spelt Nether?
Yes.
Marvellous. It's super difficult because I have no idea what it is, but I will say potentially it's making a reference to the Netherworld. So I'm hoping for some sort of fairy realm set city which has Alice's some sort of source book for it. Don't have any idea what the system is, but I am intrigued.
Would you like me to tell you?
Go on then.
Okay then. Secrets of the Nether City. It's an adventure for the Adventurer Conqueror King system, an OSR game, and it's based in a what they call a kilo dungeon, as opposed to a mega dungeon. It's a big dungeon, 240 different location entries, spread across 20 different regions. Yeah, that's basically it.
It's a massive dungeon. It's a multi-level, multi-location dungeon. It can be done in a non-linear format. So basically, it's a bit of a sandbox dungeon in some respects. So players, the GM can take them wherever. There isn't a kind of like a direct route that they have to actually take for it. There's 4 new character classes are brought into the Adventurer King system, which are the Elven Cultist, Hierophant, and Warlord, plus another one, which I have failed to write down. I've said 4, and I've listed 3, because that's how competent I can be.
So it's a 4th mystery class.
Yes. The 4th one, you'll have to go to their Kickstarter campaign and check to see what it is.
I can smell the professionalism.
Let's move on after Peter scored almost no points there.
Woohoo!
Hall of Judgment.
Nice. Well, I'm going to get out of them here and say it's a hall where you get judged.
Okay then. I suppose it's not an unreasonable guess.
Is there no subtitle or anything? No?
Not really. So it's a Viking flavoured adventure, or at least it's based on a Viking flavoured adventure
nice.
called Lost Hall of Ty. written for D&D 5th edition and the Dragon Heresy setting. It's been adapted into now a micro setting for Dungeon Fantasy, the GURPS game.
Okay. And so Vikings, Hall of Judgment, still not getting a lot of it. Maybe it's like going to hell or something like that, but couldn't tell you.
Who will take up the Tyr Staken, armed with their wits, their weapons, and an ancient riddle, and rediscover the lost Hall of Judgment?
Okay, so reference to the Viking God of War tier. Yeah, but fair enough. Alright, what's up next?
Well, I'm going to give you sort of 3 out of 10 for that one. I mean, you noticed that it was a hall and there was some judgment involved.
We're only fearing that.
To be fair, if you'd gotten Vikings out of that, I'd have been impressed.
Not half as impressed as I would.
Next, Villainous Compendium, Villains and Henchmen.
This sounds exactly like the one I just guessed.
It's not far off. It's not exactly the same. So it's.
I'm going to say it's some sort of 5th edition sourcebook, maybe Pathfinder. Got that for that 10%, and it's going to be full of villains, henchmen, and other NPCs that you can use to populate your adventures.
10 out of 10, sir.
Woohoo!
Wow, that was impressive. It's almost like you heard the title and it basically told you in the title.
That's a good title.
So you're exactly right. It's a 300 to 500 page full colour book. It's for Pathfinder, but they are planning to do a 5th edition version 2.
Nice.
It contains 35 villains and 58 henchmen and associated NPCs, making over 90 villainous characters for you to use in your game. In total, it says 375 complete stat blocks because they use something they're calling it a quadded stat block treatment. So you get 4 stat blocks for each character supporting like different levels.
Oh, okay, yeah. Different tiers, different levels.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that sounds quite good, huh?
I think it's going to be very detailed because they're saying that each of the villains is going to be between 10 and 50 pages long. So that's a lot of information about, obviously the villain themselves, but also the whole organisation around each.
Yeah, it looks like they've got like maps, lairs, plot hooks, rumours, backgrounds, all sorts of stuff for every single one.
I think they reckon that each villain, if you just use them in your own games, you could get 1 to 3 sessions of play out of each one, given the information that the base information they've got in the book for them.
Look at that one. Okay, let's go on to the next one.
Okay.
Dark Times. What's that? I'm sorry, that is the name. I didn't.
Fine.
Dark Times. What does that say to you?
It says that the times aren't good. Okay, Dark Times.
The Dark Times role-playing game sees us enter a world of blank.
Cheese.
I'm not going to say cheese because that would just be clearly cretinously wrong. Dark Times. Well, fantasy is possible. Dark Times. I don't know. I'm hoping for some sort of modern day. Tell you what, the game I'm hoping when I pick up a book that says Dark Times is a game that's all about role playing in the modern age and dealing with the rise of neo-fascists and all that sort of jazz.
Nope.
Oh, no.
Cyberpunk.
Okay.
Corporations have created superhumans. These superhumans are a property of the company, but they don't necessarily like this fact. And some of them are trying to become rogues and criminals, while others are renegades just trying to survive.
So far, so Slay Industries. Right, let's crack on.
Survive the Night.
Ooh, survival horror.
Not a bad guess there.
Probably got some zombies going on because those are traditional. But I would be hoping for maybe some Yetis. Kill a Bigfoot.
There's no Yetis mentioned, but you are correct. It is definitely a horror role-playing game.
Hey!
It's supposed to be beginner-friendly, it says. Uses a D6 mechanic. Not a lot else to say here. Survive the Night is a horror RPG that throws you up against the stuff of nightmare with nothing but your wits and whatever eclectic advantages your character may possess. And the last one.
Yep.
The Dice Hoarder Enamel Pin.
Is Hoarder H-O-R-D-E? Or
Yes.
H-O...
H-O-A-R-D-E-R.
Oh, okay. So, somebody who likes collecting dice.
One who hoards.
One who hoards, yes. As opposed to a horde of hoards. I don't know, it's an enamel pin in the shape of a dice. or with a Dice Hoarder logo on it.
There are dice on it. Yes. The Dice Holder enamel pin is actually a really cute little pin. There's a series of 4 going to be made for them. They're about 1.5 inches big, and each one has got a dragon curled round or somehow with a selection of the polyhedral dice. So it's a really nice little kind of like gamer pin. Nice and cutesy.
I got like a white one, yellow one, red one, and a green one. Oh, they're very cute. And now for an intermittent sketch starring Phileas Blakemore, monster psychiatrist. Here we have an orc with anger issues.
So, Mr. Urk, is it, what seems to be a problem?
Well, Doc, I've not been myself lately.
Oh, you've not been yourself?
Got anger issues, in it.
You mean you find you've been getting very angry for no good reason?
I've not been getting angry.
Ah, I see. And this is a problem for you.
Yeah, I'm an orc, innit? I'm supposed to be angry, but I'm just not.
Could you elaborate? I'm not sure I follow.
Well, I'm supposed to be guarding the Dark Lady's fortress of eternal darkness, like. And then, when some hero shows up, I'm supposed to lose my rag and stab him, innit?
Ah, okay, I think I follow.
But instead, I'm just like, not fussed, innit? I'm just happy, innit?
I see. What do you attribute this, happiness to?
I don't know, really. Things have been going really well. The Nipper's been going to school and getting his O-levels.
O-levels?
Orc levels, innit? He got an A in fighting and a B in pillaging. Plunder then burn, Dad, that's what he says to me. It's more profitable. I hope he'll be war chief.
That's excellent news, surely.
Exactly. How am I supposed to get angry if everything's going so well?
Ah, yes, I can see that's certainly a head-stretcher. I must admit, Mr.
Orc.
Mr. Orc, dealing with these sort of things doesn't exactly lie in my area of expertise. Have you considered speaking with a life coach?
Speaking with a life? Oh, that's more than my job's worth, that is. Go on, Doc, you gotta help me. An orc don't get angry? Well, that's no good, is it? No good to anyone.
I see. Well, I suppose I could help you, but, no, that's...
You can do something to help me. What is it?
No, I'm sorry, I'm
Go on, tell me.
No, I must really...
Yeah, help me out.
Sorry? Feeling angry?
Cool, yeah. Thanks, Doc.
Yeah, just remember this conversation and away you go.
Yeah.
So, guys, we got some reviews.
Did we?
People have been saying nice things about us.
Amazing, isn't it?
What?
It's very, very rare that people say nice things about me.
Thank you, listeners, for letting Russ have a smile on his face for a change.
I think it cracked.
Would you like to hear these reviews?
Yes, it'd be lovely.
They are quite lovely. So the first one is from somebody called Admalets. These are all on iTunes. Who says, very, very kindly, I think, Morris and EN World have been invaluable member of the RPG community, and I'm so happy to hear the podcast. Nice 5-star review there. Thank you very much, Admalets.
Oh, that's amazing. That's really sweet.
We've got one from Tiny Fry, also on iTunes. What a great podcast. The hosts really know their stuff. I'm not sure if Tiny Fry's been listening to the podcast.
I think they just have the wrong podcast, but thank you all the same.
And engaging to boot. Keep it up.
Oh, that's really nice.
DDV More on iTunes says, I'm really enjoying this podcast. Gives a good look at the new stuff out there, and I'm really liking the little skits they're performing as well. Adds a great new element to the podcast that I haven't come across before.
Oh, well, thank you very much, DDV More. Most kind.
Finally, from Captain Aries, again on iTunes, says, a must if you are keen on RPGs. Big fan of listening to these guys having a chat about current topical subjects around tabletop RPG gaming. I personally found the market crunch commentary quite insightful and the rise and fall of RPG companies and studios. Please, more.
Wow, that's totally a podcast I would listen to.
Thank you, Captain Aries.
Indeed. Yeah, and certainly folks out at home, your praise is one of the things that absolutely keeps us going. So if you want us to succeed, if you like what we're doing, please let us know. We are on iTunes, all over the shop. So if you write us a review, and for some reason I think due to their ranking system it has to be 5 stars, we would really, really appreciate that. So give us a rating, give us a review. That'd be fantastic.
Right then, what's our topic of the week? Is licensed RPGs. There has been a lot of RPGs over the last few decades licensed. There's been Star Wars, Star Trek, Indiana Jones. The list goes on. There's been, literally hundreds of them. I was just wondering, you two, what are your favourite licensed RPGs?
That's an excellent question. I never really thought about what licensed RPGs. I've generally not gone with licensed because one of the first things you do with GMing is you tend to take ideas and throw them overboard. But having said that, I've just realised I really love the Laundry RPG, which is a former Cubicle 7 product. In fact, it might still be a Cubicle 7 product. And in fact, how I met Angus. Because it was his name.
That's not the story I heard.
It's not.
That steam room.
Look, it's just Frost on my
got to do with the laundry.
It's just Frost on my
watched afterwards.
No, the Laundry is a set of books by a chap called Charles Stross, who is currently, I think, Edinburgh-based writer with a vast range of knowledge. It's full of jokes about the civil service, computer game hacking, and all sorts of nerd references to Cthulhu and so forth. I really like his books, and certainly the Laundry stuff is fantastic.
Yeah, the Laundry is a fantastic series. I read the Atrocity Archive, which was the first book that came out in the series. And I'd known Charles for a while beforehand, but hadn't actually realised he was an author. I met him before, but, outside of all of that. And I found out he was an author, did this book, so I read it, loved it, gave a copy to Dom, who's now running Cubicle 7, and basically said, let's try and get licensed. So we contacted Charles Stross and managed to do the deal, and that's how the Laundry was born. But it was using the BRP system from Kojim.
Basic role-playing Call of Cthulhu.
System. It went out of print at the end of 2017 due to a change in licensing between Cubicle 7 and Kojim. I believe they've still got the Laundry license and might be doing something new with it that won't be using the basic roleplay system, but I've no idea what, when, or anything else at the time being.
Because there's about 7 or 8 books spanning about 10, 15 years of sort of alternate history. I think they've touched on all sorts of things, including superheroes at one point, as I recall, which is pretty impressive to make that all all fit together nicely.
Yeah, well, Charles's series, the novel series is still ongoing. There's a new book that just came out within the last few weeks. Cubicle 7 did a whole bunch of supplements, adventures and everything for it. So it's got a lot of scope, certainly.
Fantastic.
Oh, sorry, I just wanted to say.
So Angus, assuming the Laundry isn't your personal favourite,
well, I've got 2. One that a lot of people don't really consider as a licensed role-playing game, but actually started its life as a licensed role-playing game, which was Call of Cthulhu. Because Call of Cthulhu is obviously was originally licensed from Arkham House and I love Call of Cthulhu, but that isn't traditionally considered a licensed role-playing game. And certainly these days, with a lot of it being open source and out of copyright, they can carry on.
So if you were to pick a more sort of traditionally obvious licensed role-playing game, what would you go for?
The old TSR Marvel Superheroes game.
I remember that one well.
I'd go with the advanced box set, which was a blue-covered box set as opposed to a yellow-covered box set. But I loved, it was a game that we played for many years back in the 80s and in the 90s, and I still look longingly at even now. It's one of the first games on the shelf next to my desk. I loved the Phaser Rip system, and I must say, being able to create your own superheroes alongside the established Marvel characters. And also we converted a lot of DC characters and other independent characters into our little cosmology and made it our own. But yeah, I loved the Marvel game. So what about you, Ross? What's your favourite?
I think it would have to be Fass's Star Trek RPG from the 1980s. That was a really, really, really big influence on me. It's still an influence on me today when I write games, and I absolutely adored that game to bits. I mean, I don't even recall whether it was that great a game, but it just imprinted on me so heavily. That, and I think the Ghostbusters RPG from West End Games around the same sort of time. Those two licensed RPGs both featured really heavily in my teenage years.
The Ghostbusters game was revolutionary as well, with the dice mechanic that it brought in and everything else.
Yeah, we discussed that in a previous episode, didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a brilliant game. Of course, one of the things that both Star Wars and Marvel have had is they've had a number of editions through different companies as well, because obviously Star Wars was, there was a new edition came out from Decipher Games, I believe it was, back in around 2000 or thereabouts. Yes. Star Trek, sorry.
Yes. You've just started a massive fan war now.
Twitter storm.
Angus, you heard it here first, people. Angus doesn't know the difference between Star Wars and Star Trek.
Oh, no.
So, and of course,
beam me up, Luke. No.
Use the Force, Scotty. Yeah. Those were super well.
And of course, one of the things which is very similar between the Star Trek and Marvel games is they've had a number of different editions from a number of companies over the years. Because Star Trek obviously had the Decipher games that came out around 1999-2000, and of course a more recent one by Modiphius Entertainment.
Yeah, there's been quite a few different Star Trek games over the years.
A Marvel, TSR released the Saga system, which was a different system that they moved away from the Phaser Rip back in the 90s, and then Margaret Weiss did the Cortex Plus style system for it, which I think only finished about 4 or 5 years ago.
It's interesting there isn't a current Marvel game.
I'd imagine that's possibly due to the cost of a license at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars presumably is about similar, owned by the same company. There's currently a big license game out for that at the moment from Fantasy Flight, and has been for a number of years.
Or perhaps they don't want to cause a competition.
That wouldn't be, Disney would be happily to license both. I don't think the competition between.
Interesting thinking about the cost of licensing a game. I mean, you've licensed a few. You've been involved in the licensing for, I believe, Doctor Who, and things like that. So you've been through the process a couple of times. More recently with our own Judge Dredd game. So, you know basically how this sort of thing works without sort of giving away any company's company secrets. And what's the sort of range of cost that you'd be looking at sort of licensing a tabletop RPG for from a existing media property?
It varies drastically depending on the type of media property you're going for. For instance, a novel-based media property is almost always going to be cheaper than a film or TV series property. One of the reasons for that is you're generally dealing with the author's agent or the author themselves when you're licensing a novel-based property, which helps enormously because
it's a much more personal connection.
Whereas if you go to a TV or a film, a lot of them, they've got their legal departments that immediately add kind of like zeros onto a thing because obviously they've got to get paid. You've got to be paying for their legal time and everything else. Generally speaking, a lot of TV and film properties will range between about $15,000 to $25,000 as an advance. So that is, money you pay up front to be able to sign the license.
I think it's safe to say that probably Star Wars was a
lot more. This is the standard run-of-the-mill TV series and such like. So things like Harry Potter, Star Wars, even Marvel would be.
Harry Potter famously does not have an RPG license because what's the name?
J.K. Rowling.
J.K. Rowling is against the idea of other people sort of creating narratives in her world.
Yeah, which is a real shame because it would make a fantastic setting, and obviously it would bring a lot of people into the hobby as well.
She's strongly against the idea, at least so far.
So far.
A number of companies have approached J.K. Rowling about doing this, haven't they? And all been turned down.
Probably over the last 18 odd years, because WotC approached them apparently in the early 2000s, and there have been a number of companies since that talk to J.K. Rowling.
So is she just not into role-playing games? Or?
Well, there's board games, there's card games, there's all sorts of merchandising for Harry Potter. It's just role-playing games, I guess, is because when you're writing role-playing games, it's a lot more of a narrative creative thing than creating a board game. And she kind of likes to maintain that kind of strict narrative control over her world.
And that has been seen in other licenses before because Last Unicorn, who got taken over by Wizards of the Coast back in the late 90s, I think it was late 90s, they had the license for Dune.
Is that based on the book by Peter S. Beagle? that Last Unicorn? Was this a
No, this is a game company.
Okay.
So Last Unicorn, the games company, got the license for Dune by Frank Herbert. And they'd licensed it off the estate, and they were developing it, and then they got taken over by Wizards of the Coast. Now, one of the problems that they came about was that Frank Herbert's estate didn't realise that Dune, the role-playing game, was going to be a book format game. I think they thought it was going to be something else. It's one of the things that you can fall foul of sometimes, because a number of companies might already have existing licenses for book products, or like to think, their book products are their novels, and that is the format that their novels will be in, and don't want anything else that could be confused with it. Now, obviously, from a fan and professional point of view, it's very hard to confuse a role-playing game with an actual novel, but in some, in circles that don't know it so well, it could be, conceived that way. Especially when you've got a big license that might get bookstand distribution in some of the, some of the big high street traders.
There's also an interesting aspect that when you're licensing a property, you could perhaps license the books but not the TV show, or the books but not the film. Like, for example, Green Running's upcoming Expanse game is based on the books, not on the TV show, and I'm fairly sure their Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire game, exactly the same thing, based on the books, not the TV show. Our own Judge Dredd game, based on the comics, not the sort of Carl Urban or Sylvester Stallone movies, nothing to do with those.
Yeah. And when we licensed Lord of the Rings when I was at Cubicle 7, again, that was from the novels series, really, apart, not the
Steve Jackson movies.
But you see, one of those things is that's a conscious decision, because if you license it from the multimedia, from the carbon fiber TV film, it could be a lot more expensive than licensing it through the novel version.
And it's a lot more restrictive.
But it's a lot more restrictive, because when you think about it, then you'll be using their photography, their images from the films, etc., which they only show so much, so many settings and everything else. Whereas obviously if you license from a book, you'll be using your own artwork. So it allows you to be able to be a lot more expansive of where you want to take the game, take the setting, and the type of things that you want to portray in it. So it does give two very, very different, styles of approach to licensing.
Over the years, there's been an awful lot of licensed role-playing games. What are some of the sort of more amusing or sort of odd choices for licensed RPGs that you've come across?
I once had the Dallas role-playing game by SPI. Now it came out in the early 80s.
Sorry, just to interrupt, the Dallas role-playing game, you refer to the TV series Dallas.
J.R. Ewing and Bobby and everyone else, I brought it really as a novelty item, because I saw it in an auction that one of my friends was doing, selling off a load of his old games. I thought, right,
how could you not?
I have to have this. It was actually James Wallace who was running Hogshead Publishing.
Oh, really?
He had a whole host of games that he was selling off. And I brought a few of them. I brought the Dallas role-playing game, which, like I say, originally came out about 1980-81 from SPI. Now, there's an ongoing joke within the industry that came from a quote from, I think, one of the guys involved in SPI. They printed 80,000 copies of the game. And he said that was 79,999 too many. It flopped. It didn't do very well at all. It is, I don't know how many copies are still out there in existence.
You should send your copy out as a prize one week.
I sold it, unfortunately, probably about 18 years ago, along with another one of the games that I got off James at the time, which was He-Man and Masters of the Universe role-playing game, which was quite amusing.
I'm kind of surprised there isn't one of that currently, actually.
I'm surprised there isn't a new... given that, He-Man has never really gone away and there's a new film coming out and everything else, I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't. Other licensed games which I found were very odd. Necroscope.
I don't know what that is.
The Brian Lumley vampire series.
Necroscope and Tales from the Crypt were both produced by West End Games as masterbook games in about 1994, along at the same time with their version of the Indiana Jones game that had previously been the TSR property back in the 80s. So there's been a load, but there was also I think it was called Femforce, which was based upon an independent series of comics again back in the mid 90s, late 80s, which is an all-female superhero group. I can't remember who produced the comics or much about it, but I remember that being produced in a kind of like this box set and everything else. But yeah, there's been tons, and there's been some great family friendly ones. It's like the Tales of Questia, which is out now, which is My Little Pony role playing game, and that's stunning. That was a really, really nice role play game. So yeah, what's the weirdest licensed role play game you guys have come across?
You mean apart from Tales of Equestria? That's purely because...
So what might be fun to ask is, what licensed role-playing game would you really like to see that does not currently exist?
Oh, one of the other things... there's also an Adventure Time role-playing game. Now, Adventure Time is a massively popular cartoon. Now, a lot of people who listen to this podcast probably don't realise there's a role-playing game on it. And that's because it's never been released in English, and there's actually not able to be licensed into English. So you've got a French version, a Portuguese version, a Spanish version, but because of the licensing contracts, because of the different geographical regions, meaning that presumably the English language license, there's comic book holders and novel companies probably have an Adventure Time license for printed product. It's unable to be translated into English.
It's interesting talking about kind of restrictions on what you can produce. For example, Fantasy Flight don't produce PDFs of the Star Wars games because apparently they're not allowed to release like electronic products. I think when the license was written, what people had in mind was computer games and video games and things like that. But basically PDFs count. So they can't release PDF versions of those books.
Yeah, a lot of companies now, when you're doing licensing, you have to include, you try and get the electronic book included in that license, because otherwise,
if you don't,
they'll think it's an app or a computer game. It's very, licenses are very, very carefully worded to make sure that you are playing within this certain structure and box.
Exactly, and licenses tend to be, well, depending of course on the company, tend to be fairly heavily overseen as well. Everything needing approval, not just the text, but also advertising, promotional pieces, things like that. So, and that can sort of take time, sending things back and forth, having things approved, having them sent back, changing them and things like that.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons where you might not hear a lot of advance information on the run-up to a licensed product release up until the last kind of like few weeks or months before it comes out. And like you say, that's largely because every step of the way, every visual and everything else initially will need to have approval from the actual, the owners of the license. So, for instance, whether or not you're doing a game based upon a computer, a novel, an existing game property in some cases, like the Warhammer games, or film, etc.
You can't just whack out a quick screenshot or a ad or something, or hand out a preview or something without having explicit permission from the IP holder in the first place, who's got to have seen that piece of media you're putting out, approved it, probably asked you to change it a couple of times, things like that. And that's why with licensed properties you sometimes can feel a little frustrated waiting to hear, and then suddenly, a month before the game comes out, you suddenly hear a whole bunch of stuff.
You get a deluge.
Because the IP holder's gotten around to, approving a whole load of stuff that they can then use.
Yeah, so maybe to ask you a question about a property that you might be a bit more familiar with. So with the new Judge Dredd game coming out on What's Old is New, that's with 2000 AD, are they the license holders?
So Rebellion is the company, so they own 2000 AD, and Judge Dredd is one storyline within the comic book 2000 AD.
So were you able to have NPCs and stuff? And
sure, yeah, we've got a license pretty much for the entirety of 2000 AD.
So if you want rules of Judge Dredd, Hershey, Anderson...
everything in there, yep.
Judge Death as well?
Yeah, everything.
Fantastic.
Everything.
It sounds like you got it very comprehensively good then.
Yeah, we should have a physical copy of that book in our hands within the next few days as well. There's one winging its way towards me as we speak. I can't wait. Excellent. I'm going to lick it when it arrives.
Ah, yes, of course. That's how you make sure it's safe on the rules. Osmosis.
So what licenses out there would you love to see turned into a role-playing game?
That's a tough one, because a lot of the ones that I'd be keen on already are. So Star Trek would be top of my list, already done. Star Wars, high up, already done. Lord of the Rings, high up, already done. I'm trying to think. Harry Potter, I'm not a massive Harry Potter fan, to be honest. I think it would be a great license for someone to have, but I don't think it's one that I would personally play. What licenses?
I think
EastEnders, the RPG. Get out of my palm, you slack!
Sounds like you'd be going down Dallas route and probably printed 79,989 too many.
I'd love to see a new Ghostbusters game. Though, to be fair, I'm not entirely sure you can improve much on the old one. I'd love that to bits. But yeah, I'd love to see a new Ghostbusters game.
one that I would be very interested in seeing. Not sure how you'd implement it, but an XCOM role-playing game. James Bond.
Yeah, I'd love to see a really good spy game, maybe licensed off the James Bond franchise. That could be fun.
James, because there was a James Bond game many, many years ago from Victory Games back in the 80s.
But what I think would be fun would be, though, not to base it on the films, but on the books, and make it a period piece, so it's set in the 60s.
Okay, yeah.
I think I'd quite enjoy that. So instead of having sort of invisible cars and stuff, you'd have, the more sort of old-fashioned kind of gadgets, the briefcase with the garrote wire and, that sort of thing. So it's not quite as high-tech, and it's more about the spycraft rather than...
Your real Cold War sort of umbrella dart gun.
Yeah.
And sort of like...
And I always think the Russians make great villains.
And of course, also back then, you would also have kind of like remnants of a Nazi underground or something like that playing around as well, wouldn't you?
So that'd be another thing I would definitely be interested in seeing.
Tool around in 60s Berlin. In a sort of similar fashion to Atomic Blonde.
No mobile phones, no internet, all that sort of stuff.
It certainly makes researching and finding information a lot harder for your players.
Yeah. What about you then, Angus? What would you like to see?
I'd like to see a new Marvel game come out, but again, that's a license that's sort of been around in the past. For something brand new, I would probably say Mortal Engines, which is actually it's a fantastic series of novels by a guy called Philip Reeve, and they've actually got a film series coming out that Peter Jackson took the rights.
Yeah, I've seen the trailer.
It's
great big cities on wheels eating each other.
Mobile cities. The setting is fantastic.
I don't quite get it. At least all I've seen, admittedly, is the trailer, but I didn't quite get it.
Yeah, the novels are fantastic. Yeah, kind of like I'm a big fan of His Dark Materials, which I would say if you like His Dark Materials, his Mortal Engines is an easier read, but very much for that similar target audience. Yeah. It's an excellent series of novels.
I'll tell you what else I would quite like to see, and this has been done before, but do you remember the old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game?
I think that's long overdue for a new edition.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that, and just the way that you could just create all these different sort of intelligent humanoid animals.
Talking about humanoid animals, Danger Mouse.
Danger Mouse would be fantastic. I'd love to see that. Crikey, DM.
Yeah, that would be brilliant fun.
Yeah, no, a Danger Mouse game would be... You could make a great kids game out of that, couldn't you?
Yeah.
A sort of simple, fast-flowing, funny kids game.
Custard pie guns.
Yeah.
The whole works.
That would be fun.
It has been a while since Danger Mouse was on TV.
Yeah, it hasn't, actually. There's been a recent TV series. It came back, 2 years ago?
Yeah, there's a new TV series.
It's got Stephen Fry as Colonel K, and I can't remember who else is in it, but, resurrected, and it's back on TV.
Who knew?
Hey, Peter...
Yes, Russ.
See that microphone in front of you?
It's very shiny.
Yeah. That cost money, that did.
No.
See the microphone in front of me?
Yeah.
That cost money too. Huh. The one in front of Angus I just found in a dump.
I can tell it's the yesterday's takeaway in food that's dripping.
I thought it was just your lunch.
Okay. So we, we've had to spend quite a bit of money on equipment to make this podcast, and we also have to pay Daryl, our amazing sound engineer, every week. So we would really, really appreciate it if you would, see your way to throw in a couple of dollars our way in supporting our podcast via our Patreon. So we currently have 2 patrons.
2 patrons?
So thank you very much to Andrew Mallets and Shane Plays.
Thank you very much for your support.
Couldn't do this without you. Yeah, head on to patreon.com/Morris, drop us $1 or so a month, and we'll be very, very, very grateful. Okay, last week we held a competition. Do you remember?
Yes.
Do you remember the answer to the competition? Do you remember the question to the competition?
As I recall, it was something along the lines of, where do you find the three-eyed blatterbeast?
Correct. And Angus, do you recall the answer?
I don't. I can't remember where we find the three-eyed blatterbeast.
Well, the winner of our competition was at Stormbreaker, Tyler MC on Twitter, who answered, the three-eyed blatterbeast lived in the caves of Lesser Doom.
I should have remembered that.
Really much less impressive, he says, now that it's all written out. It's not like the six-eyed blatterbeast of the caves of Greater Doom or anything. That would have been impressive. So, Stormbreaker, you are the winner. Message me on Twitter with your address and I'll get that book sent straight out to you. Yeah, so in future, rather than tweet me, where anyone can read the answer, you're going to need to email me instead.
Ooh, exciting. And what email address should they use?
That is an excellent question, and I'm going to answer it. Are you ready?
I'm born ready. Let's do it.
The answer to the question, and this is not the answer to this week's competition question, I hasten to add.
This is not to my question just now.
Yes.
What email address they should choose?
Is morrispodcast@gmail.com.
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 All together now.
morrispodcast@gmail.com.
So send your answers to that email address and only please send them to that email address. This week's competition involves another question related to our sketch this week. The question is as follows. What is the name of the monster psychiatrist extraordinaire? Anyway, send your answers to morrispodcast@gmail.com. The prize this week is a copy of the first part of the 5th edition War of the Burning Sky adventure path. It will be a soft cover, full cover adventure called The Scouring of Gate Pass, which will go out to you next week if you are the winner of this competition.
Ooh. And what time does the competition close?
Friday, midnight, UK time, as always.
Fantastic.
Good luck, folks.
Well, thank you very much for listening. See you next week. That's goodbye from me, Russ.
Goodbye from me, Peter Coffey.
And goodbye from me, Angus Abrams.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Apparently I now have to read this to you. This is the official podcast of Morris's unofficial tabletop RPG news, which you can find at enworld.org. You can find show notes at morris.podbean.com or wherever you found the podcast. If you feel like they deserve it, you can support the show on Patreon. In return, you will receive exclusive bonus content. Just go to patreon.com/Morris. If you're interested in his babbling nonsense, you can follow @Morris on the Twitter. Send your emails to morrispodcast@gmail.com. Not all of your emails, just the ones you want us to see. That's it. I'm bored now. You can go away. Shoo, off you go. Goodbye. Get out of here.